another episode of Spirited Dialogue hosted by Transformative. I'm Gautam Palapa,
I'm Asanka Besingha.
and we are the co founders of Transformative, where our mission is to transform organizations through technology and empathy. In our previous episodes, we discussed the importance of identifying business outcomes, how to align on strategic and departmental outcomes, and then we explored how we as leaders can quantify the definition of success for these outcomes and how to measure and track them. Measuring what matters is really important to ensure that we're working towards the success of the organization's business outcomes. But achieving success needs people. And it's not just people, it needs the right kind of people. So I figured Asanka and I, we would jump into that and have a discussion around how we can identify the most powerful people who can help transform and help us achieve those business outcomes. So let's kick off with this question. Asanka, why do we need change agents? Because that's truly what these people are. We need people who are not just going to work and bring value, but we want them to change. We want them to transform, which means we need change agents. So why don't we start off with why you think we need change agents, and I'll add on to it.
Yeah, I think it's a good question because any organization who's going through the transformation might be questioning themselves about this as well. So transformation is a change, right? Like you are moving from a specific state to another, like better state. To do that, I think it's really important to have guidance as well as monitor, measure. So to do this, having a specific group of people who specialized is very important. Again, depending on the size of the organization, this matters a lot as well. Because if you look at a larger enterprise, you can't transform everybody at once, right? So that's where having these agents will be really useful. So they can have a proper approach as well as fix anything that they require to do during the transformation journey and get the desired outcome without wasting time, money, because as we know, not every transformation is successful, right? So there are a lot of failures. So this is basically a way to minimize the risk and make sure that we get to that particular objectives and desired outcomes. So that's how I see the importance of change agents are really important.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we both have talked about this, and I've probably shared this in multiple forums, but I firmly believe that any digital transformation or any business transformation that an organization is undergoing is rooted in empathy, right? So the goal of any transformation that we have are twofold. The first one is to reduce the pain. It can be pain for the customer, it can be pain within the organization. But the goal of any transformation is to reduce the pain, be it intrinsic or extrinsic. The other one is to make sure that we contain the risk that the organization takes, but let's not focus on that right now. Let's focus on the reducing pain option. And most of the initiatives that organizations are going to create is to reduce that form of pain. Now, what we need to do as leaders is to find and identify those like minded people who are really passionate about reducing the pain that we're trying to reduce. And when we identify those like minded people, they become the team, they become the change agents. And now, these like minded people, when they start seeing that they're reducing the pain, they feel extremely happy because they are delivering value, and that gives them the purpose. Their purpose is now to reduce the pain and deliver value. And then when they start seeing the value being created and customers are themselves internally experiencing that pain being reduced, it gives them that motivation. And that is the kind of change agents that we need to create. And those are the kinds of change agents that we need to identify within the organization. So how do we go about to do that? How do we identify the change agents? Because one of the knee-jerk reactions that a lot of people do is they do the psychological profiles and they do all these other tests and they try to say, oh, okay, because you are in the product organization or whether you're in the engineering function, you probably are a change agent. But that's not really true. We need to be very purposeful about identify the change agents within our organization. So, what are your tips, Asan?
Yeah.
How do we go about it?
So I think the first or the most important thing is that we should not import these change agents. That is one problem that I see, and one mistake these organizations are doing. Either bring the leader of the particular team or bring all the change agents from outside. So that is something that we have to avoid. And number two is basically identify what type of transformation that we are doing within the organization. So identifying people who is accepting this transformation is key, because everybody should be on board. And then, as you mentioned, the purpose is very, very important. So you have to identify people who can clearly understand the purpose, and then like who kind of believe the culture as well as the changes that we are planning to implement. So that is very, very important. And then the diversity, or the kind of a multi-talented or multi-skill set is very, very important. That's where a team, like a successful team builds. I think if you look at multiple examples from the sports world, like successful teams like the Dream Team in the US basketball team, or Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls team,
Yeah.
or like many sports teams, if you take, it's different set of skills that providing success and then winning the championships. So we need to look at that angle, the skill set, then seniority, because sometimes we just get set of senior people. That's wrong. We need to get every level of people, because then that way, like, they can apply these changes based on their peers and their thought processes, and formulate it in a more pragmatic way. So I think that's where we need to identify this stuff, and then identify the people who we need for this team. And sometimes crowdsourcing might be another approach, that we can get volunteers, because when people volunteer, then they are coming with the passion as well. So that's a good thing. I'm not telling the entire team should pick from that. Probably we can pick few people from that particular group, and then few we have identified as good change agents within the organization. So one thing I highlighted at the beginning, that we should not bring the or import the people outside, but don't take it wrong, because sometimes some of the skills might be not available within the organization. So we can identify those skills carefully, and then bring people from outside, but they should be fit into the culture as well as the organization objectives.
Yeah, that is a great point, and thank you for mentioning that, because even I've seen, it's my experience that more often than not, the first reaction for leaders when they want to create change agents is they import them from outside. Now there are a couple of things that go out there. You identified some of them. I want to add a couple of additional things. The first one is there's going to be a morale problem. The minute that you bring someone from outside, it would signal to the entire organization that you don't have trust or you don't have confidence in the capabilities of the people internally. So you really want to think about that. The second one that I would say is really important is the fact that the person who is coming in from outside is coming from a different culture. So there's going to be a culture clash. There is going to be a time by which there will be assimilation, and there will probably be a natural tug and pull between the change agent who has been introduced and the team. So it will take time to form storm and norm for this particular individual. And if time is of a criticality for you, you probably don't want to just start going down that path. The third thing is you don't want to rely on just seniority. I think that is something that I've seen in a number of places. Like there are some change agents who may not have existed for a long time within the organization, but they have amazing ideas. They're very strategic. They have a much more systemic thinking. And that's what you need to look for in change agents. And we'll go into that a little bit more, but I want to reference this particular graph that I've always used in the past to identify change agents. And this, if you're familiar with Crossing the Chasm by the late Jeffrey Moore, or the diffusion of innovation graph, any one of those, we know that there is a uniform curve and there is a distribution of innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards, which is going to be the distribution very similar to what you have within your organization. Your change agents, more often than not, will not be in the late majority and laggards. That's just a given. Um, I call them as momentum takers and momentum breakers. And that is something that James Maxwell also uses. Yeah, John Maxwell uses. The where we want to focus on is the innovators, the early adopters, and the and part of the early majority, not the entire early majority. So the earlier part of the early majority are the momentum makers, also the ones that create the momentum within the organization. They are the ones who like to change and they thrive on this change. Um, so you need to identify that critical mass of innovators, early adopters, and maybe the initial portion of the early majority. And those are the people that we want to um, refine, we want to enable and empower and entrust with becoming that change agent. And even in that, what I would say is there are certain things that we want to focus on, which constitutes a good change agent, right? We talked about the first one. It is the belief in the purpose. We want to make sure that they are fundamentally aligned with the purpose and they strongly believe in it. The second one is they need to be committed to it, right? They need to make sure that they will go above and beyond as needed. And that comes only with the passion and with the belief in the purpose. We want to have builders, not heroes. Now, this is something that I've seen happen again and again. There are some people who probably have made a really great career, and kudos to them, right? They've made a great career by being in the trenches, being firefighters, and putting out fires, and they made a name for themselves. But those people have their adrenaline and their dopamine and their endorphins being fixed in a different way. They are there to fix the problems. They are not really there to build, and I think that is something we do need to acknowledge. So we want to have builders. We don't want to have heroes. And then we want people to feel comfortable to fail. If someone feels that perfection is the goal and they cannot fail at all, then they probably will never be a change agent because they're not going to take the risk. And then we want to have an entrepreneurship approach to things. Like that is an entrepreneurial spirit in an enterprise, which is an entrepreneurial spirit. So we want someone to have that. And then finally, we cannot do anything, especially if you're in technology, if you don't have the technical attitude. That is necessary, but that is not the first thing that you go into. That is a table stake. That is something that is fundamental to a change agent. So I feel these are six things that we need to focus on when we try to identify the change agents. And I'm not saying that we want to solely focus on psychological evaluation or based upon their previous laurels or things that they have worked on, but you need to give people the opportunity. You need to take a step back and evaluate the lens that you want them to operate in before you identify them as a change agent.
Yeah, yeah. I think one key thing there is like give them a seat in the digital steering committee, right? Because without authority, it will be really hard for them to apply some of these changes. So they should be treated in that way. And I think these 4 E's, like empower, engage, entrust, and enable, is key. There should be some autonomy for them, because they need to look at the organizational stuff, what's happening in the market, customers, other stakeholders of the organization. So that autonomy will help to bring some of these changes to the organization as well. So the one thing that I highlight on some of these uh, content that I provide, called the digital core. So it's not only about the technology. I think that's where these change agents are coming as part of the digital core as well. When we start the transformation, building the digital core team is very, very important. And as you said, the technical depth is essential, because end of the day,
Yeah.
it's a technological transformation that we do by bringing digital stuff, digitization, and digital transformation. So it's very, very important. But the social aspect as well as the business aspect is very, very important when we are making the changes.
Yeah, I would agree. We need to have like a feeder team, right? We need to have a pipeline of emerging leaders and put them in situations where they can actually learn to flex their thought muscles and their strategic muscles and not just their technical capabilities, right? So I like the idea of you having like a digital co where it can help them grow and feed and make them much more stronger as leaders and as change agents. I have a similar concept. I call it a first team, where the first team is a group of peer leaders who own portions of the value stream and whose teams are involved in the flow of business value through the organization. And so, if these peer leaders must be aligned to the business outcomes and the definition of success in order to really operate and make sure that their teams are successful. And they have to work together to remove any impediments that might come up in the delivery of business value, and they have to empower their teams to deliver that value, right? They have to meet regularly to ensure success. They need to be like a phalanx. They have to be really tightly connected and make sure that they're operating as one, because they are signaling to the entire organization that they are committed to ensuring success and to the purpose. And when they show that they are committed to the purpose, then their teams are going to see that as well, and they're going to emulate it. And that's how you truly create transformations and how you really transform organizations and not have incremental change. That's what I truly believe out there.
Yeah, and one question, most of the time coming from the leaders of these organizations, if you build this digital core or the change agents, how we scale?
Hmm.
Because that's a question, because, especially when it comes to a larger organizations. I think bunch of things we can apply. One a practical scenario is the train the trainer type of
Mhm.
an approach. That's where it's very important to bring people from different levels, so that way they can train their own teams. And a few other tactics we can think about: the platform thinking, because if we have a platform that drive the transformation, then it's easy to implement some of these concepts, and then put the governance into the platform, and then the automation, and then getting some of this stuff into the processes will be really important as well. So that way the change become part of the culture,
Yes.
and naturally people will adopt to that and follow those change instructions without too much of an effort.
Yeah. And I'm going to add two more things to it. Or actually, I'll add one thing and then I'll talk about something else that could influence this. But the thing that I would add is pairing, pair programming. So we do pair programming at a development level, but there is nothing that prevents us to actually pair at multiple levels. I pair with people in Asanka, you do the same as well. We
Yeah.
pair with the executives on the strategy and on the planning and on the outcomes roadmap. So We pair at that level. We have people who pair at the tactical level and then at the operational level. So once you are pairing, you are increasing the potential for the pair to learn from the primary, and then you can rotate it, and that's where you can also amplify that train the trainer approach when
Yep.
you do. Now, the other thing that I will caution and I will talk about is many people jump into Conway's law and they start thinking that in order to create change agents or in order to create transformation, you want to start with Conway's law. Well, there is truth in the Conway's law in the fact that an organization will create software the same way that the organization is created. So if it is very waterfall, the software is going to be very waterfall, or it's going to be very monolithic. So it does make sense. And I love the fact that you brought platform thinking into it, because that's truly where we want to go. But in order for the team, or in order for the change agents to create and become a high performance team, you don't have to immediately start changing the HR reporting structures. Those are different things. You can have logical or matrixed approaches in order to start solving this problem. You don't want to introduce too much of churn or chaos within the organization until you have high performance teams. And I think some organizations start off with the reporting structure because they feel once they're reporting, it becomes easier. But it's actually not the case. It's when you create psychologically safe environments and you allow them and enable them to take risks and innovate, that's when you truly have high performance. I just wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. This hierarchy of or the reporting structure is orthogonal to the how we assemble the change agents, and the metric structures are working really well. And something that I have noticed, the individual contributors, they are very effective as change agents as well, because they see through different teams and different skill sets. So I think when we build this team, we should include few individual contributors, not only the managers or functional leads.
That's awesome. Well, on that note, I think let's wrap up this particular episode, because we've
Yep.
been talking about some really, really cool and interesting things. So, thank you all for listening to another lively episode of Spirited Dialogue. For any successful transformation, it's people, not technology, that are the true value creators. And so
Yep.
we need to identify as leaders the right change agents. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Um,
We
that's
have
it.
a book recommendation as usual. We missed that during last episode. Sorry about that. So this week we are recommending this book by
Marty
Marty.
Cagle.
Yeah. So Empowered. Most of the stuff we spoke about on giving or enabling teams, as well as how we can make autonomy. So explained in this book. So the series of books that they authored, it's awesome. But specifically, this is more related to the topic that we discussed today.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for bringing that. And yes, we did miss the book recommendation the last time, but I'm glad we rectified that. So thank you for the feedback loop. Uh, so what we understood is that we need to identify the right change agents who can create the momentum within our organizations. And we need these change agents to have belief and strong alignment with the purpose of the initiative or the transformation, and to be motivated to drive success. We also need to create a first team, a team of peer leaders, or even a digital co. So this is a team of leaders who own the functions in the value stream, who have the power and authority to remove the impediments that arise, and who are passionate. And they are stepping in. They're emerging leaders and change agents who are stepping in to make the transformation successful. That's really critical and that's really important. We recommended a book. There are so many other books that are there, but this one is really, really favorite for both of us. There's a lot of really great ideas that we have, and we align very strongly with that particular book. I hope you all have enjoyed this episode as much as we did. As always, please reach out to us through the contact form or social media, and we're happy to hear your thoughts and insights, and even continue to have this conversation further. So until next time, from all of us at Transformity, cheers.
Cheers.